Right then, so Charles Leclerc led the field home for his first win of the season, with Carlos Sainz finishing second to complete a Ferrari 1-2. Meanwhile, Red Bull drivers Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez had their second and fourth places cruelly taken away due to technical issues. However, that's not all. As some commentators pointed out, Verstappen's pace during his 2 out laps were alarmingly slow for what was an opportunity to overtake Charles Leclerc and take first place. So, what exactly was the problem? Why was Verstappen taking it easy during those crucial laps, and who is to blame for their double retirement? Now, Verstappen ran second in the first stint of the Bahrain Grand Prix, falling nearly 4 seconds behind race leader Charles Leclerc before pitting at the end of lap 14. 1 lap later, Leclerc pitted, but Verstappen had closed the gap, resulting in a tight wheel-to-wheel battle between the two drivers for the next few laps. Verstappen pitted first again in the second round of stops, but was unable to close the gap to Leclerc, prompting an angry outburst over the radio from the world champion. "That is 2 times I've taken it easy on the outlap and not been in front. I'm never ever doing that again." According to Red Bull Formula 1 advisor Marko, Max Verstappen's slow outlaps in Bahrain cost him the opportunity to get the undercut and lead. After the race, Marko told reporters in the Bahrain paddock that Red Bull underestimated the power of the undercut and told Verstappen to manage his pace, citing tyre degradation as the primary reason. Max was actually told to hold back during his outlaps. If he had driven at a normal pace, he would have been in front of Leclerc, and when you're in front, it's a completely different story. But our tyre degradation was incredibly higher than Ferrari, and the power of the Ferrari engine was very impressive as well. But still, if Max had been in front of Leclerc, maybe the story would have been different. When asked if the slow outlap was due to a blunder by Red Bull or Verstappen, Marko replied, "It was all about the strategy from us, so it was our mistake, not Max's." Verstappen would eventually retire from the race with 3 laps remaining due to a fuel pump issue that caused him to slow on track before returning to the pits, capping off a disappointing start to his F1 title defense. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner admitted that judging how hard to push early in a stint was always a balance, but he believed Ferrari would have won anyway. The problem is it's always a balance. Whatever you take out of the tyre early in the stint, you lose later in the stint. I think we underestimated the undercut, but I think Ferrari had the pace today. Had we got that track position, they would have made the overtake. We just didn't quite have that pace today. Throughout the race in Bahrain, Verstappen was vocal over team radio, complaining about the strategy before later reporting a steering issue that made the car feel like a robot. But while Verstappen admits that comments were harsh, he doesn't regret sharing his unfiltered opinions over team radio. "I don't hold back, I say what I think of the car, and I was not happy with what we were doing, or with the balance of the car, or with the strategy. It wasn't necessarily directed to GP, I have a really good relationship with him. But of course he's the only one I can talk to. We have to analyse quite a few things." It was certainly surprising to see both Red Bull cars fail within a few laps of each other, with Verstappen retiring just before Perez. Marko was the first to reveal after the race that they had suffered the same fate, a problem with fuel getting to the engine. The intriguing part of the story is that F1 fuel systems are now made up of components supplied by the team, the power unit manufacturer, and third parties who won FIA contracts to supply standard components. As a result, Red Bull's failure could be attributed to the failure of a generic part supplied by the FIA and not the fault of the team. In fact, Marko hinted that the problem was with a key component from a third-party supplier. What we suspect is that there are problems with the fuel pump for both cars, but the fuel pump doesn't come from us, we just have to take it. And we never had this problem before, that's the strange thing. So, how and why do F1 cars use such standard components in their enormously complicated fuel systems? As the new regulations were being developed, originally for 2021, it was agreed that the primer and high pressure pumps, as well as some associated bits, were areas where it made sense to use standard parts, primarily to save money by avoiding development costs. Furthermore, standard parts would give the FIA more control over what teams were doing, which was an important consideration given how sensitive fuel flow and usage is in regulatory terms. The FIA issued tender invitations for 2 major fuel system elements in 2019, and the contracts were won by companies with long histories in the F1 pit lane. The World Motorsport Council noted in December of that year, Following the pre-selection of Magneti Marelli for the fuel primer pump and of Bosch for the higher pressure fuel pump and piping by the Council on 30 July 2019, a phase of consultation with the teams, power unit manufacturers and the two prospective suppliers was conducted under the arbitration of the FIA Technical Department. Today, the Council proceeded to final appointment of the two suppliers. Now, the wording is critical here. It would be incorrect to refer to those standard pumps as FIA supplied. The governing body served as a go-between, and the teams and power unit manufacturers had a say in the final decision. Fuel systems also include some OSCs, or open source components, in which teams create their own but must show the designs to competitors and potentially allow them to be copied. The lift pump is one example, and it may yet be revealed that it was the source of the problems on Sunday. Jody Eggington, AlphaTauri's technical director, explains how OSC, standard and custom components play a role in the fuel system. The standard parts are in that low pressure system, and then there's team specific parts in that system. Some of those parts are OSC, so you supply details of those to the FIA so other people can see them. But it's all pretty straightforward what you can and can't do, and it's well defined. It's a lot more controlled and regulated than it has been in the past, which is good. The range of things you can do now is limited compared to a number of years ago. Some of the plumbing is specified as a standard supply part, or we supply details of lengths of piping and plumbing. The collector is car specific, as is the fuel cell. Mechanical parts are standardized, but with the bits around them you've got some level of freedom. Following the start of testing for the new cars in Barcelona, some teams encountered problems with the primer pump. Few details have been made public, though Haas CEO Günther Steiner has stated that on the first day of testing they had a fuel pump issue caused by an internal leak in the fuel tank. Ferrari is also thought to have had a problem during the Bahrain test. The issue was investigated and understood, and countermeasures were implemented across the teams in collaboration with the FIA. After qualifying in Bahrain, Race Control issued an unusual document indicating that there were concerns. It informed the teams that had cars in Q3. For this event only, and in contradiction to the requirements of Article 40.6 of the FIA F1 sporting regulations, you will be allowed to delay the covering of your cars 1 hour later than required in order to inspect the SSC fuel primer pump. In other words, the extra hour before the cars went to bed overnight was specifically provided so that teams could inspect the primer pump as a precautionary measure. Intriguingly, shortly after the race, Horner implied that the primer pump was not the problem that brought the RB18s to a halt, while confirming that the team performed a pre-race inspection. Yes, we did, but I think that was a general concern rather than specific to Red Bull. We just need to get the cars back, get the fuel system apart and understand, because we know the fuel was in there. I think there have been some other issues that we've been made aware of. It was just an inspection that we wanted to double check. So of course it's all subjective at the moment until we get the cars apart and understand exactly what caused the issue. And I suspect it's similar on both cars because it's too close and too similar a failure. And there you have it. We must now wait for an official analysis from Red Bull Racing. Unfortunately for the team, they may be racing against the clock to make any necessary repairs and adjustments before this weekend's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos. Please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. So, what do you think about Red Bull's mishandling of pit stops in Bahrain? And do you think the team will be able to resolve the fuel pump issue before we leave for Saudi Arabia? We'd love to hear what you think.